What is up, everyone? Brandon First, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the NFL Weekly, week 17 to be exact. Up until about 2 or 3 years ago, it was the end of the regular season. We get one more game next week, but it is the penultimate game of the regular season. And here with me, as always, to break it down is my friend and co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing well. We got past Christmas. There's no rain in the forecast until Sunday. The sun's out. It must be holidays in Southern California.
Amen. It's been weather-wise beautiful. It was beautiful Christmas. A very interesting football Christmas. Especially for both of our teams. Huge win for the Raiders. A win for the Eagles. I'll leave it at that. But it's been obviously a season of just, as I kind of put in my notes, a season of chaos. And I think we saw that on Monday with the Raiders pulling it out despite not completing a pass at post first quarter, and the Ravens maybe with the surprise of the season, not only beating the Niners, but I mean, I turned that game off in the third quarter. That game was just getting ugly. But it's been a crazy season up to this point. Raider Jim, we're pretty much to the end. Your thoughts on week 16 of the regular season?
Oh, you know what? It didn't disappoint, that's for sure. And again, even if I picked my own team, and which I didn't, there is just no way to determine who was going to win or lose this week. We both had strong feelings about the San Francisco 49ers and the defense and how the defense was going to shut down Lamar Jackson, and that just didn't happen. You look at the Chargers and the Bills. We thought that the Bills were going to go out and cover the point spreads and things like that. That did not happen. I mean, the Chargers, they came close to pulling one of the greatest upsets of in the AFC West. And then what do you say about Russell Wilson? It looks like his time in Denver is done, is what they're saying. So, wow, that experiment just didn't work out, and it's too bad. But we've seen that so often in sports. You get the guy who goes back that one more time, and I just hope that's not the case when Aaron Rodgers does step back on the field. Like him or not like him, you don't want to see the legacy that he has become tarnished and be remembered as, oh, that's too bad he went and tried one more time and become a punchline in jokes.
Yeah, the Russell Wilson, it's obviously last year was setting the tone for what we've seen pretty much over the last 48 hours. But this time last week, it was a very different story. Maybe let's go even back 2 weeks before they lost to Detroit. I really thought Denver might be, one of the dark horses in the AFC wildcard picture. I thought they were going to go to Detroit and handle business the way those two teams had played. And then obviously Detroit got the job done, and Denver has been in this kind of free fall. And now we're hearing not only is he being benched, but they're saying, look, get ready. March, whatever is that magical date, he is going to be cut.
He's
And
done, yeah.
yeah, it's December. What is it? We're recording on the 28th of December. So through almost pretty much 2.5 months out of that magical date, they're already calling their shots. Technically, the Broncos are not eliminated, but it doesn't look good in Denver. Some of my thoughts, obviously, the main thing is for fans, it's great, but for bettors, it's been a nightmare, and it's embrace the chaos. It's kind of how I look at March Madness. We all fill out our brackets, and we all think we're going to be the Warren Buffett $1 million winner who has a perfect bracket, and then 3 games into the tournament, you've already lost a 2 or a 3 seed or a Final Four team, and you're ripping your bracket up. In those situations, I have to remind myself, embrace the chaos. Now, when you're getting your butt kicked for 14 or 15 weeks straight, that's a little tougher to take rather than just a bracket. But the chaos is there, and I think the chaos factor needs to be kind of literally factored into these games. We saw it on Monday. We've seen it. Now, we don't have any more Monday night games, But Monday night ended on a string of, I believe, 8 or 9, not only dogs covering, but underdogs winning. It was
Yep.
8 or 9 straight to finish the season, obviously culminating with Baltimore's win over San Francisco. It really just kind of goes to show. Then the other side of things, I brought up the Titanic analogy where I was, I don't know what team I was talking about at the time, but I said I was going to be the violinist. I was going to play going down with the ship. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm not that violinist, and there's no lifeboats left when it comes to Kansas City. I've been someone to say, look, stop. Everything will work itself out. Somehow, some way, this team will find themselves in the AFC Championship, and everything will go back to normal. I don't think that's the case anymore. There is a lot of issues going on in Kansas City. And I don't think it's just one person. I don't think it's just one position group. There's a lot of frustration. And Eric Bieniemy, this might be the best notch on his resume, kind of looking at, hey, look what's happened since I left. But it's been a chaotic season, but we're coming to its conclusion. And I think we only have 8 of the 32 teams technically eliminated with 2 games to go. That doesn't happen in a lot of other sports. And I know the condensed schedule makes it that way, but we're going to see an incredible run to the end. And I think without further ado, it's time to dive into week 17. As I said, used to be the final weekend of the season, will not be the case this year, the last few years. So we do have one more week next week, but we do have our final kind of non-Sunday games. All games next week will be on Sunday. So keep an eye on that. The schedule very fluid. Even when the schedule comes out, week 6 or week 18 games always have the TBD in terms of the time of games. So just keep an eye on that. That'll be a very fluid situation coming next week. But no Monday night games. We do have our final Thursday night game, and it's an interesting one on one side of things, but it is the New York Jets. They're 6-9. They're heading to Cleveland, who is looking like a playoff surety. They are the Browns are 10-5, and the Browns are going to be 7-point favorites in this one. The over/under does sit at 35.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Final Thursday night game of the season. The Jets head to Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland, there they are sitting at the number 5 position right now in the playoff picture. And, they're 8 and I think, oh no,
10
they're
and
10-5. I mean, what do you say about that? That's a very, very good record. And they've done it through adversity. They have persevered. They have played well. The Jets on the other side are the Jets. Saleh has done what he can, but what do you do when your quarterbacks get knocked out? Your quarterbacks can't, your offensive line gets pushed around every now and then. But the Jets, I think they're down to the last 2 weeks, and for all intents and purposes, they cannot upset Cleveland's position right now, meaning that even if they were to win, Cleveland is still going to make it into the playoffs. I think the Jets just need to get through the last 2 games. They're going to be out there. They're going to be trying hard. But Cleveland wants to keep they want to fortify their position in the playoffs. So look for them to come out, have a strong game. I think they're going to have a good running the ball. They are going to go ahead and keep it on the ground. I think they're going to do well on the ground. They're going to take care of business on the line. Give me Cleveland minus 6.5. I'll take that half point, and I'll go under 35.5.
I'm going to take Cleveland as well. I don't need to mess with that half point. I've been really impressed with Joe Flacco since he's come back. He was never a quarterback, that's going to get out of the pocket, kind of this new age read option quarterback. He's just going to drop back and sling it. He is the gunslinger. He's playing at an incredible level, which is crazy considering I believe he was actually on the Jets last year, or at least in the recent future, and he was not good, folks. He didn't look like this. So something's going on there in Cleveland. As you said, the adversity. They lost Nick Chubb early in the season. They've kind of fought back and still contain that identity. The defense isn't on that historic rate, but is still one of the best in the game. In terms of playoffs here, obviously Jets already eliminated, as you alluded to. Even a loss here for Cleveland doesn't ruin their playoff chances pretty much. I mean, they could probably lose their final two games and still have a 50% chance of making the playoff. Obviously, they don't want to do that. And I don't expect it here. I think Cleveland gets the job done, pretty much ties a bow on the 5 seed, because if they win this game, they will have, the opportunity to rest some players next week. They're not going to, unfortunately, run down the Ravens. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're eliminated. They would need a miracle to run down the Ravens. So that 5 seed pretty much locked in for them. If they can win this game, that would be, I think, key. I think they do get the job done. Playoffs definitely in reach for the Browns. Really interesting matchup. But I will say I did like to see that the Jets have come out and, this isn't binding or anything like that. But Saleh will be returning next season. I think he's deserved an opportunity to run it back with that defense and whatever Aaron Rodgers we do get next season, because we will, at some point, get Aaron Rodgers next year. So moving on, staying on the chronological side of things, this will be our Saturday matchup, our final Saturday game of the season. It is going to be a very, very good one. And one that gives makes a lot of Eagles fans very uncomfortable, and we'll get to that in a moment. But it is the Detroit Lions, who are 11-4. They're heading to the 10-5 Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys are going to be 6-point favorites in this one. The over/under sits at 53.5. And look, obviously, as an Eagle fan, the reason why this does give you, a little bit of, make you a little uncomfortable is after the Niners losing this past Monday and the Eagles winning, the 1 seed very much back up in the air. However, the Eagles will need the Lions to kind of bow out of this conversation as well. And Dallas could do that for us here, which is, like I said, makes you a little uncomfortable to have them cheer for the Cowboys. Because of the Cowboys lost to the Bills this past week, to the Dolphins this past weekend. The NFC East is pretty much buttoned up for the Eagles. They would need to lose the final 2 games, and Dallas would need to win the final 2 games. Not to say that can't happen, but the Eagles do have a very, easy road to the end. If you look at things, chaos has been a factor. But it would be nice to see the Cowboys kind of put the Lions out of the one hunt, if you will. But in terms of this game, I can't trust Dallas anymore. For the last few weeks, I've been saying this is the time, Dallas is going to go. They're going to show what they can do on the road, and it hasn't happened. Now, obviously, they played a lot better. It was a last-second field goal that got the job done. Against Buffalo and San Francisco, they were just getting the doors blown off of them. So at least they, made it competitive. They are at home here. So I think a win is in the cards here. 6 points is a lot. I'm going to buy a half a point. Give me Detroit plus 6.5. I do like the over here. 2 really good offenses. Dallas's defense has been struggling a bit, not points wise, but they've been beaten up. And they've been kind of out bullied and out physical, which is interesting, especially against a Miami team that you don't see that too often. But give me the over in this one, but I do like Detroit to cover, not necessarily win. One final shout out to Dan Campbell. The Detroit Lions won their first ever NFC North title. The last division title they won was the NFC Central. So congratulations to Dan Campbell. This was a guy who was on the 0-16 Lions team. We all laughed and made fun of his press conference when he talked about biting kneecaps. The kneecaps have been bit. Congratulations to the Lions and Dan Campbell. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Lions at the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm a big believer at if a team has losses, then you can develop a blueprint to beat them. Dallas has been beaten. Dallas is, Miami played them strong. Bills played them strong. Detroit is not 11-4 because they're not good. They're 11-4 because they're good and very good. And they also, like you said, you look at that playoff picture, there they sit at number 3. All they need is San Francisco to drop another one, Philadelphia to drop another one, and wow, you got quite a race for who's going to be the top seed in the NFC. And I think Detroit's going to come out like you. I'm going to go ahead and take that half point and take Detroit plus 6.5. But I think the Detroit defense is really going to get after the offensive line, and they're just going to show enough looks that it's going to really it might cause that split second, before they can get rid of the ball, or not enough time in the pocket, but it's just going to upset the timing of the Dallas offense. So give me Detroit plus 6.5. Like you, I like the over in this one. I'm not going to take any plus or minus not going to buy any points on that. I'll just take it at over 53.5. I see it going 56 points, no problem. And I think it's going to be a good, exciting game. But Dallas they've made enough mistakes along the way against good teams to show how they can be beat. And I think Detroit's going to be smart enough to put together that game plan.
Agreed. It's going to be a fantastic Saturday. It's just really overall a fantastic weekend of sports. Christmas has good sports, but it's a lot of family time, which is good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not complaining, but there are obligations that don't maybe revolve around your TV. At least for single guys like myself, I think every weekend your life can't really revolve around the TV if you're married or in a committed relationship. But for a single guy like myself, did have to sacrifice some viewing time to do some festive activities last weekend. Not this weekend. It's going to be a fantastic weekend. Friday, we talked about, the Gonzaga San Diego State. Then we got this game on Saturday, along with some really good bowl and college basketball games. Full slate on Sunday. And of course, Monday, we have the college football playoff, which we've been waiting for some time. But yeah, it's going to be a fantastic Saturday night. And I think this is going to be a game that really highlights this good job by the schedule makers, that this game is kind of standing alone. Really interesting matchup. So moving on to the Sunday side of things, it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals coming in at 3-12, already been eliminated from the playoffs. They'll be facing my Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are 11-4. Eagles are going to be 6-point favorites in this one. The over-under sits at 48. And I believe, if you did watch the Eagles on Christmas Day, the first half looked really good. I still was not fully happy, but, it looked good in the first half. And then the Eagles just seemed to refused to put a bad Giants team away. Tyrod Taylor came in off the bench and gave him a little bit of a spark, a pick six from Adoree Jackson, some special teams blunders, first ever forced fumble that I've seen on a kick return by your own player. But the Eagles did survive. It was overall a good weekend for them. And I think what I need to get used to, and I think it's always the case in the NFL, is style points don't really matter. Wins and losses do. The Eagles are 11-4. It hasn't been pretty much all season, but they are where they are because of the talent that this team has. They get the job done. With that being said, I still don't think this team is okay. They're trending in a better direction. Now, what's interesting is obviously you get Jonathan Gannon, the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. He is the former coordinator for the Eagles last year. So we'll see how that goes. But I think the Eagles offense has been so predictable. You don't need to have been a coordinator for this team to kind of know what's coming, which is unfortunate. But I just think the talent of this game is overwhelmingly towards Philadelphia. The big problem I have with the defense from last week is they have to get off the field on third downs. And I think Kyler Murray is really good at staying on the field in third downs. So keep an eye on that. That's why I am taking the over. I think this does turn into a bit of a shootout. We're going to see some points being scored. Obviously I never bet on my own team, but I would probably buy a half a point here. Take Philadelphia -5.5. I do think the Eagles do win by a touchdown. I don't want to get caught with not to say Jake misses an extra point or something like that, but 5.5 is something I'm comfortable with. And I do like the over in this one. Philadelphia, like I said, all to play for with Arizona and then the Giants to finish out the season. And some things go their way. Who knows? They could be the 1 seed, but they need to win this game. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Arizona at Philadelphia.
We cover every game or as many games as we want to each week in and week out, and sometimes they're just dog games and teams that are dogs at the time. Arizona is one of those dog teams. They're just bad. They're a bad football team. I think they're at a 200 winning percentage right now. They've only won 3 games. And this is just, this is almost like mercy rule could go into effect here. Arizona's not going to show up and do anything fascinating. They're not going to go out and really take it to the Eagles. Eagles are, I think they're in that frame of mind where they know every game does count, which I mean every team does week in and week out. But playoff perspective, they have to, they know that they're playing for that top seed. Philadelphia is going to put together a great game defensively. They will hold everything. They will keep Arizona out of the end zone probably. Win by 10.5. Why not? Give them a 10. Give me I don't know if I will take the spread on this one just because things get crazy anymore. If I was going to take the spread, I'd buy a point and give it Philadelphia minus 9.5. The over under 48, I would go under on this one though, and only because I don't think Arizona is going to see the end zone. They might get a field goal or two, but I think the Philadelphia defense is going to step up and really just shut things down. So give me the Eagles minus a 9.5 if I was taking the spread, and under 48. But I think it's their game. Weather's not going to be a factor in this one either. Just cold.
Yeah, did I get my line wrong? I'm wondering if I put mine down.
You were saying 5.5, but on
Yeah.
the note you
Is
said
it 10.5?
10.5.
Okay. Full disclosure. Hopefully boss isn't working, but I did put this together at work. So, might not have been full focus. So yeah, wow. 9.5, 10.5. I'm definitely a little more negative on my Eagles. I would probably maybe take the points there with Arizona 10.5. I don't know. This is a team that lets some teams back in. So yeah, maybe I'll switch that up. I think everyone would love Philadelphia 5.5.
10.5 on Vegas Insider.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. That was on me. I think it's my second mess up on the line this season, so not too bad. But yeah, that I like that 10.5 there for Arizona. I think even a backdoor cover could be a possibility there. So sticking in the NFC East, it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams, who are currently 8-7. They sit as the 6th seed in the NFC right now. Currently have a 67% chance of making the playoffs. A win here would bump that up to 87. So really sitting pretty. A loss would drop that down to 25% though. This is all according to NFL's next gen stats. But so big must win here for the LA Rams. They're going to be 6.5 point favorites as they head across country to face the New York Giants, who were eliminated last week. The Giants are 5-10. Obviously, the big news was, that there were a lot of, jokes going around on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. Everyone opening up their Tommy DeVito jerseys on Christmas just to look up and see Tyrod Taylor take his job. But yeah, that's what we saw this past weekend. The Giants looked better with Tyrod. No doubt about it. So the DeVito train may be stalled on arrival, but on the Rams side of things, Matthew Stafford has this offense humming. Sean McVay is tapping into that mix of the old wily veterans and Aaron Donald and Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp with these young, talented. The drafts have been incredible, especially for a team that hasn't had a first round pick in quite some time. They've really hit it out of the park. Obviously, Puka Nacua has been incredible. And I think they're a real threat in the NFC, especially on the wild card side of things. I don't see how the Giants, even being at home, can cover this one. I really like the Rams here. I'll take the Rams 6.5. I think Stafford and everyone is really putting things together. Is there any weather to be worried about? I don't know if you have that.
No weather. The only game that has weather is that top game with Cleveland, tonight's game.
Okay.
It's going to be 39 degrees and raining.
Okay. Gotcha. So yeah, I think Stafford and company go in, they pick up where they left off, and they've left off, scoring at, really high rate. I think we see that. The only problem here, the over under, I like the under, but it's mainly because I don't know if the Giants are going to score too much. But I do worry about, the Rams putting up 31 points and all of a sudden the Giants, they fall forward for 2 touchdowns and you go, damn, the Rams scored too much in this one. So I'm going to take the under, but I am a little worried that the Rams do a little too much scoring in this one. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Rams head to New York to face the Giants.
Yeah, God bless the Giants. I mean, they had their moment where I believe they ran off three straight,
Yeah.
and we all kind of snickered
Mhm.
off to the side and said, "You don't suppose?" And nah, they kind of went back to the same old thing, but have been playing competitive. I think they're going to play competitive at home. I don't remember if their last game of the season is going to be at home or on the road, but they're going to give the folks something to cheer about on this coming Sunday. Rams, on the other hand, like you said, they're playing for their playoff lives right now. I think they're going to come out, have a great game offensively. Defense, the Ram defense is not that old Ram defense that took them to the Super Bowl and things. They're not that menacing. They're good. They're not great. And I think the Giants are going to be able to. I'll take a half a point on the Giants. Give me the Giants +7 on this one. I can see it being a 4-point game. I think what I've got in the back of my mind is thinking, oh, the Bills are going to cover against the Chargers, no problem. And the Chargers come out and run up the 22 points that I referred to earlier. So give me the Giants +7 on this one. Over under at 42, I'll take a half point on that side and go over 41.5 because I think there's going to be some points. I can see this being 28-24, no problem.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting matchup. Obviously, the Giants looking like Brian Dable will be returning next year. We'll see the quarterback situation. They're going to owe a lot of money to Daniel Jones. I think they still want to go forward with him when he gets healthy, but this will so next week the Eagles will play the Giants at home or in New Jersey. So this is their second to last home playoff game. But yeah, there might be their best chance to get something to cheer about with the Eagles coming in next week, just 2 weeks after beating them on Christmas. But moving on to the final NFC East game we'll be talking about, it is the San Francisco 49ers licking their wounds. They are 11-4. They are going to head across country as 13.5-point favorites against the Commanders, who are 4-11. They have been eliminated. Playoff situation for the Niners. Obviously, they are the 1 seed. They win out. They will be the 1 seed. This is very important for San Francisco to get the 1 seed as well, because you don't want to have to go to Philadelphia. Look, they won in Philadelphia in early December. The weather is going to be a lot different in late January. So they're going to want to make sure that they play on the West Coast if they can help it. So they're going to need to win this game. And I think they take care of business, no problem. Sam Howell seems to have, I don't know if it's been a benching or if it's just a, sit down, we're going to reset next season. I don't know what it is. But Jacoby Brissett will be starting for the remainder of the season. And to be honest, they looked a lot better last week. He almost came back and got the job done against the Jets, so you can't really fault him for doing that. You do question whether or not, how that affects Sam Howell going forward. But in this matchup, I think this is the punch someone game for the Niners. I think they're just going to look for someone to hit, and they're going to hit some people pretty quickly. I think the Niners get the job done. It's a big spread, but the Niners are a really good team against a really bad team. And yeah, I talked about the chaos, but sometimes you just got to look at it and go, I think this is, this versus that. I'm taking this. Give me San Francisco. I will buy a half a point though. 13. I don't know. Like I said, I always kind of worry about those missed extra points or something like that. So give me San Francisco -13. I like the under here. I don't know if Washington scores a whole lot here. I don't think they score enough to, I think their magic number would probably need to be 17 or 21 to get that over under. However, I could see San Francisco just going off. Obviously, Brock Purdy, look, earlier in the season during their 3-game losing streak, I had some questions about him. I don't think Monday night was, he's washed. We need to start Sam Darnold. That's ridiculous. He had a rough game. Only 2 of those interceptions I really do believe were on him. Maybe the decision making does need to get better, but I think the Niners are going to be just fine. And I think the only thing I worry about the over under is them putting up pretty much 49 points by themselves. But I do like the under in this one with San Francisco holding the cover. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? The 49ers heading to Landover, Maryland.
Yeah, you wonder if the 49ers aren't going to play somewhat conservative. And what I mean conservative is just like they don't want to see people hurt. They want to leave the starters out there, of course. They want to make sure that they get that top seed. And I think they will do that. My other concern is on the other side of the ball. What's Washington got to lose? You're not going to have guys out there that just don't care. I think you're going to have guys that, okay, look, this is our playoff game. Let's do everything we can to disrupt the San Francisco apple cart. And so, with that said, I think Washington, Brissett under center, I think that's going to be a good thing against San Francisco. Like he's got playing experience. He knows what he's doing. He's got the enemy telling him what they're going to run. So watch for. I'll take a half a point. Give me 14 plus 14 for Washington. I think they're going to cover. I can see this going 24-17. So I also like the under in this one. I won't take a point or a half point either way on that one. I think San Francisco definitely gets the win. They retain that first place seed in the NFC, but I think it's not going to be the biggest blowout like everybody's thinking. Okay, and even if they win by 10, I think
Yeah.
Washington covers with 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, it's a big statement, I think, for the Niners.
Yeah.
To just be at least able to go out and maybe even for Purdy more than anybody, whether he needs to prove it to us or not. But yeah, he can't have another multiple turnover game. For this team, especially this time of year. But time to shift our focus to the AFC West side of things. And folks, it might sound crazy, but I'm here to tell you there's a chance, there is a scenario in the world that the Las Vegas Raiders win the AFC West. However, it does have to start this weekend and, really the rest of the season. The final 2 games, the Raiders are going to have to win out, but it is going to be the Raiders at 7-8. They are heading to Indianapolis to face the 8-7 Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are going to be 3-point favorites. The over-under sits at 44 in terms of the playoff implications. Like I said, Raiders, they want to make the playoffs. They need to win out and get some help. For the Colts, they are the final team in as of right now. Currently, they have a 51% chance, so pretty much a coin flip. A win here would push that closer to 70%. So obviously, both of these teams, it is a must win to keep playoff hopes alive. Raider Jim, this is your jurisdiction. What are your thoughts, Raiders heading to Indianapolis as underdogs?
Yeah, I am still the skeptical Raider fan. Of course, I like to see my boys in silver and black go out there and take care of business, and me and the Raider Nation jump up and down and get all excited. At the same time, I will say you beat, you ran it up against the Chargers. Okay, with a rookie quarterback who was taking his first snaps in the NFL. Yeah, I wouldn't be too proud about that one, but okay, it was a good motivator for the Raiders. You went out and you beat the Kansas City Chiefs last week at home on Christmas Day. That is a victory. And at the same time, you and I have been saying it probably since week 8. This isn't last year's Chiefs or the year before that's Chiefs. This is a different Chiefs look. And they've got something going on, as you alluded to. Something's happening out there. Be it the jinx of Taylor Swift in the box and too much emphasis on the celebrity and not the game in the box and not on the what's going on the field. The Raiders have put together that chance where yes they could make it. I think you said, or I read it was 13% chance that they can make it, 30% chance if they beat Indianapolis. On the other side of it, this every game, not every game, these 2 games that we're going to talk about, this one and the next one, playoff implications, no doubt. Indianapolis, I have 2 teams that I noted on my notes from yesterday. Kansas City and the other team is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Back on Thanksgiving, at the end of the Thanksgiving weekend, Jacksonville Jaguars were 8-3, and they are not 8-3 now. Now they're in this 3-way battle to see who's going to end up winning the division. One of those teams being Indianapolis. Indianapolis has to win to stay alive in this one. And guess what? I don't think it's going to happen. They're the at-home favorite, -3. I think the Raider defense is going to do enough to keep Indianapolis at bay. And I think I like the Raiders plus 3.5 on this one. The over-under at 44, give me the under on this because I don't think anybody's going to score a lot of points. And the only thing I would say, another negative against the Raiders, that's great. You beat the Chargers, you beat the Chiefs, but I go back to you could not score against Minnesota. If you'd have won that game, if you would have been able to score against New England, you know, this would be a whole different look, but you guys shot yourselves in the foot. Coaching changes since then. I understand that, but still, let's see what happens for the last two games. But give me the Raiders in this one. I think they're going to take care of business. But that's not to say that Houston's going to win, and that's not to say that Jacksonville's going to win. Those other two teams might lose this week too, and you still
Yep.
got a two-way tie for first place.
Yeah, the Souths are yeah,
Terrible.
they're in a bit of an identity crisis right now, both the AFC and NFC South. You might be seeing 9-8 and 9-8, or 9-8 in the AFC and 8-9 in the NFC winning that division. But yeah, in this matchup, I will say, look, for the Raiders, I've been very impressed with what Antonio Pierce has been able to do. And I don't even know if he's doing anything. I think he's maybe just letting them be a little bit more themselves. I mean, from everything we heard, it was a very tense office or tense atmosphere when Josh McDaniels was there. And you could understand it. We've heard those kind of stories even when he was back at Denver. And Antonio Pierce coming in, and obviously a bit of a breath of fresh air. Obviously, there's always that question, what do you have to do to keep your job as an interim coach in Vegas? And hopefully Antonio Pierce has done enough. We'll find out about that later on. I'm the same way. I think the Raiders, I think they can win this game. The one thing I will say, though, is you're not going to be able to win this game not completing a pass past the first quarter. That has to be addressed. You're going to have to figure out a way to get your offense, your aerial attack working, because you're not going to run for whatever 200 and what was it? Rashad White, is that his name? Or kind of came out of nowhere, running for 150 plus yards, and they really just bullied and dominated Kansas City. I don't know if they're going to be able to do that with Indy. I think Indy's going to stretch it out a little bit more. I think, as crazy as it seems, but the offense in Indy might be better than the Kansas City offense. I know that sounds nutty, but the Raiders are going to have to score more than, we're going to have to at least put more effort into the passing game in this one to win. I think they can do that. Been very impressed with what their defense has been able to do. My only concern, though, is the Indianapolis Colts. They look like the 85 Bears and the Arizona Cardinals from week in to week out. They are so up and down. It's incredible to see. They're kind of like the Jameis Winston version of an NFL football team. They can look like world beaters, and they could look like they can't beat a Pee-wee team. But at the end of the day, I think the Raiders are the more consistent team. They have more to play for. Indy's playoff chances obviously take a hit, but they'll still have a 25% chance to make the playoffs with a loss. The Raiders would be essentially eliminated. So I think Antonio Pierce has tapped into something. Give me the Raiders plus 3.5. And like you, I think it's going to be points are going to come at a premium. Give me the under 44. So moving on to the other team we were kind of talking about in that game. It is the Kansas City Chiefs. They are going to host the Cincinnati Bengals. Unfortunately for the Bengals, their playoff chances really took a hit this past weekend with their loss to Pittsburgh. Their chances at the moment sit at 24%. A win could bump that up to 58. A loss drops that to 8. Obviously, it's going to be tough heading into Arrowhead to face the 9-6 Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs playoff percentages pretty much as close to clinching at this moment without clinching. They're at 95%. A win would clinch the AFC West. However, a loss complicates things. Drops their playoff chances down to 85%. But, like I said, they're more than likely a playoff lock, but plenty to talk about in this one. They are going to be 7-point favorites, and the over-under sits at 44.5. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Bengals at Chiefs.
Kansas City Chiefs. It's not the Chiefs of the last couple of years that we already talked about. At one point they were at the beginning of the season, that was it. Kansas City, that's it. The AFC is theirs. Let's just fast forward. Let's just put them in the playoffs, put them in the Super Bowl. And that's just not happening. And like I say, too many distractions. They don't have the same offensive coordinator. And Patrick Mahomes is still very, very good. He is still a magician when he needs to be. However, it's not for lack of confidence, but at some point, you do question yourself. It's not that I can't do it, it's just that pause of, should I do it before you throw the ball? And it's that split second where you just screwed up the play, or your receiver, you're not in sync with your receiver. You got guys dropping the ball. Kansas City's in a bad way right now. And like you said, they even got pushed around on the D line last week. Here's the difference this coming into this week's game, even though they're at home. Cincinnati, in my opinion, is a more balanced team than the Raiders on both sides of the ball. Maybe defensively, apples to apples. Offensively, Cincinnati is a better team. Cincinnati's going to come in a 7-point underdog. Give me a half a point. Give me Cincinnati plus 7.5. Give me under 45 because weather's not a factor. I just don't see it going over 45. Why? Look back over some of the recent Kansas City games. They're not scoring. They're not scoring. They can't score. They're not even hitting 20 points. They're putting up offensive numbers on the scoreboard like the Raiders did early in the year and even still are, throw out the high game. So I don't think Kansas City is going to fare much better this week. And then, yeah, there's a lot of worrying over in Arrowhead if that happens. The Raiders win, the Chiefs lose. All of a sudden, we're coming down to the very last week of the season. And wouldn't that be something to see?
Would be incredible. Excuse me while I grab my violin, because guess what? I'm going to be the violinist on the Titanic. I don't know why. I just talked about how Kansas City's in trouble and all this stuff. And I'm going to grab my violin and keep playing on this ship that is more than likely busted and going towards the bottom of the ocean. I think Kansas City can cover here. I'm going to buy a half a point. I don't know. It seems like now I think the big issue is, obviously Eric Bieniemy gone, but Matt Nagy, his offense has really not translated into Patrick Mahomes. And that's an situation where the confidence you talked about, I think Patrick Mahomes always has confidence in himself. I think it's the confidence it's almost kind of like your ladder, right? If you're a carpenter, you're a painter. If you got a busted ladder, are you really going to go up to that second step? You may, maybe you lost that little leveling pad at the bottom and you're a little shaky. Are you going to take that extra step? And I really do think Patrick Mahomes kind of second guesses himself when he's in the pocket and doing these things. Can my offense afford to, deal with this if I were to mess up? And I think he's in his head a little too much. And now for Andy Reid's credit, he's obviously stuck with Matt Nagy, but I don't know. I feel like two teams in Cleveland that really, really struggled against a Pittsburgh team. And now you're going to have to deal with a Kansas City team coming in, or at least they're coming in here. I think this is going to be back-to-back home games where the Kansas City Chiefs look in the mirror and say, we have to make a statement. Not for anybody else. They don't want to make a statement to anybody else except for them and their fans, because there's a lot of, I think the Eagles and Kansas City fans are in very similar boats right now. We know what the team's capable of, but we just don't know if they're going to get there. And I think both of these teams need to prove it to themselves and to their fans. They get the job done. This will be Kansas City's final home game. So I just think everything's lining up for Kansas City to just beat the doors off somebody. I think Jake Browning's story was great. And I think it might be coming to a bit of a conclusion on that side of it. So give me Kansas City minus 6.5. I do like the over, but once again, that's just going with my narrative in my head that I need to see Kansas City drop 31 to 38 points. And I know that seems crazy, but that's what I think is going to happen. I think Kansas City is going to go in and take care of business. And, next week when we talk about the chaos, I'll put my hand up and go, yep, I lost my violin because it's at the bottom of the ocean, as am I. But we'll see. Final game in the AFC West, excuse me. It's going to be an all AFC West matchup. It is the eliminated 5-10 Chargers at the soon to be possibly eliminated Denver Broncos. The Broncos have at the moment a 7% chance. Even with a win, it's only a 12% chance to make the playoffs. A loss eliminates them. We talked about it. It's Jared Stidham getting the call, not Russell Wilson. He's been benched and essentially, for all intents and purposes, cut as well. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Chargers head to Mile High in a, kind of a meh matchup, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, nobody thought at the beginning of the year it was supposed to be Raiders at the very bottom.
Yeah,
Raiders eliminated, no chance by this time in the schedule. And now here we are. The Chargers, who were supposed to challenge the Chiefs, are sitting at the bottom looking up at everybody. However, I will say this, watching the way the Chargers played against Buffalo, that was a good game. They
yeah.
put together a good game. They're going to bring in that same core, that same mentality, and they know we're not making the playoffs. We might as well keep somebody out of the playoffs. Denver on the other side of the ball, Russell Wilson, all the issues they're having, that does translate onto the field, whether people believe it does or it does not. Now you're going to have a different quarterback in there. What's the chemistry going to be like? The effort will be there because they know that they cannot slip at all. However, 5.5 point favorites against the Chargers after what I saw the Chargers do against the Bills, no chance. Give me a half point. Give me the Chargers +6. And then on the over under 38.5, it's not going to snow. There is no snow. It's going to be cold though. Denver on this one, the 38.5, that's a tough one. I would go over on this one just by virtue of what I saw the Chargers do against Buffalo. And I think Denver will come out and put some points on the board. I can see it being 24-21. We all go home. Guess what? That's all it takes to get over 38. Matter of fact, 21-17, maybe you want to buy that half point if you think it's going to be close. But I think both teams are going to hit in the 20s.
Yeah, it's going to be a matchup that we won't remember, 5-10 years down the road, but I think could be one of those that on the day of the game that was fun. And because like you said, neither of these teams really have a ton to play for. Obviously, the Broncos will say, "Oh no, we got to win out," and we can make no. It's more than likely, even a win out, you're still going to need a lot to go their way. I think the Chargers do cover here. I was impressed with what I saw from them as well on was it Saturday night? Yes, it was Saturday night. And also the other part of this, the Chargers pretty much play, 14 to 15 road games a year, depending on how you look at the crowd. So the at least the crowd won't be a factor, and the altitude, the Chargers. This is, yet another trip to Mile High. There's a blueprint in this organization, how you deal with Mile High altitude. They'll take care of that side of it. And Easton Stick, when he's back there, even in the 63 to whatever, Easton Stick has not been the problem. And I think that I think I have more faith in Easton Stick than Jared Stidham, as crazy as that is. So I'll take the points and run, maybe even think about sprinkling a money line situation. Chargers might be an outright winner here. I do like the under here. I think we are going to see some turnovers. We got two young quarterbacks. We might see some red zone turnovers. Unfortunately, neither of these teams has shown the ability to hold on to the ball very well. So I do think we are going to see maybe a 20-17 could be possibly where I obviously need the cap to be. But yeah, I could see the Chargers covering, maybe even winning this one. But like I said, probably not a game that you're going to watch live, but maybe a game that you're going to have on the bottom corner. Just keeping an eye on it, because I do think we're going to see some intrigue, if only for the 60 minutes, not anything else. But moving on to our final game of the weekend, and it's probably the biggest of the weekend. Definitely for playoff implications. It is the Miami Dolphins. They are heading to Baltimore. Now, both of these teams already in the playoffs, and they are currently the 1 and 2 seed, Baltimore being the 1, Miami the 2. But obviously, this is kind of the de facto AFC regular season championship, if you will. The Dolphins at 11 and 4, Baltimore at 12-3. The game will be in Baltimore. The Ravens are going to be 4-point favorites in this one. The over-under sits at 47. Now, in terms of talent, this game is going to be chock full of it. Obviously, Lamar Jackson and Tua at the top. I've been really infatuated with what I've seen out of Zay Flowers, the wide receiver position for Baltimore. I think he's not getting nearly enough credit for, getting Baltimore where they have been. Lamar's needed a weapon like him, especially considering Mark Andrews has been out for the majority of the season, one of the best tight ends in football. A lot of credit goes to him. And Gus Edwards, goodness, he's not goal line Gus anymore. That guy's busting off 20-yard runs seems like every week. I really like Baltimore here in this one. I'm not fully in on Miami. I'll be honest. Yes, they looked good against Dallas, but I needed to see more from them. And what I saw out of Baltimore on Monday night was very, very impressive. Might have been the most impressive game I've seen this season from a team. So I like Baltimore here. I don't need to buy any half points. I'm going to take Baltimore -4. In terms of the over-under, I think we see some points being scored. Yes, Baltimore's defense is really good, but Miami's defense can score, or excuse me, Miami's offense can score really quickly. They don't need 10 minutes or 5 minutes to, wear down drives. You could blink and it's a 75-yard Tyreek going down on a slant, going down the field on a slant. So I do like the over in this one, but unfortunately, I just think this is a Ferrari versus kind of like Hummer matchup, speed versus power. And in December, back east, I know weather probably won't be an issue, but it's going to be colder than anything Miami's going to be seeing up to this point. So give me Baltimore -4, and I do like the over in this one. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts? Miami heads to Baltimore.
Yeah, if I'm Miami, I understand the 3-point favorite goes to the home team, but at the same time, I'm a little bit insulted that you would actually give them another point. Granted, what they did against San Francisco, it's hard to not sit back and if you're the handicapper and say that Baltimore team is really, really, really good, and so they could come out and do it. So at the same time, though, what about Miami? I think Miami's going to bring it, as you said, high-powered offense. We've talked about that on and off this year. Because they're just good. That's stating the obvious that they have a high-powered, strike-quick offense when they need to. It's the defense that's got to step up. I think the defense will step up. It's going to be a hard road to contain Lamar Jackson, but I think they know that they just have to do this 60 minutes this week. And when they're sitting at the number 2 spot, they're 11-4. They didn't get to 11-4 by being just kind of okay. They got there by being good. So I'll get a half point. I'll take Miami +4.5 on this one, even if they drop it. Even if they don't get the win, I think it's going to go down to 24-23, 24-21. Somebody blows a 2-point conversion at the end of the game type of a thing. I think that's going to be the difference in this one. But the over-under, oh yeah, give me over all day long, 47, because I think there's going to be some points on the board. This is going to be the game to watch this weekend.
Yeah, I agree. And I hope it lives up to its billing. Baltimore doesn't have to apologize to me or anything, but that San Francisco Ravens game was a bit of a letdown. From what we were kind of hoping. Hopefully this one will not be the case and it can, really give us also an idea of what to expect. Because like I said, they're at least for Miami, I still have question marks. I do wonder, are we going to see Devon A-Chain get back to where he was before the injury? And he's young. I think he's only a rookie or a second-year guy, so I'm not writing the guy off. But you've definitely seen a little bit of a regression since he came back from injury, which, to be expected. But Raheem Mostert, touchdown machine. Oh, it's going to be an interesting one. I hope we get the matchup we all hope for and deserve in this one. But that is all we have for you, Raider Jim. Final thoughts for the final 2023 NFL Weekly of the year.
Who'd have thought it'll be a new year and only 1 week to go the next time that you and I hit record on this thing. Wow, and it's been a wild 17 weeks. Diluted, we say the quality of the game has been diluted. It's been crazy. It's been erratic. The only consistent thing has been inconsistency. So who knows what's going to happen in the playoffs? In my fantasy world, what am I thinking? Well, there was that time the wild card team pulled it all together and won the Super Bowl. Those guys were wearing silver and black. Again, that's in my fantasy world. Who knows? It could happen, but boy, wouldn't that be one for the storybooks? But I don't foresee that. But in the AFC, I don't see it being Kansas City this year. So best of luck to Miami and Baltimore, because for all the games that we've seen where we say, there it is, that's the championship game. I really think this is probably going to be the championship game this coming Sunday. And other than that, I hope everybody had a safe and Merry Christmas. Please, 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 as we said last week, New Year's Eve weekend, New Year's weekend, have your champagne, have a cocktail, enjoy it with friends, but do not get behind the wheel of that car for the sake of yourself, your family, your friends, and those others who you don't even know, those people just on either side of you on the freeways and the roads. Don't drink and drive.
Amen. Especially here in Southern California, probably going to be getting rain on New Year's Eve. So, make sure that you do everything responsibly. But yeah, going back to the NFL side of things, obviously week 17 are now going to be looking ahead to next week 18, and then obviously wild card and divisional and the full playoffs. You talk about that wild card team that can kind of run and change some things. I tell you what, I look at the AFC and I see two. I see Baltimore, or excuse me, I see Cleveland and I see Buffalo. Two teams that I don't think anybody wants to play. I mean, at the moment, we're looking at a Cleveland, a Buffalo at Kansas City. Kansas City wants nothing to do with Buffalo right now.
I agree.
And even on the other side, you got Jacksonville would host Cleveland, or insert AFC South team here versus Cleveland. I don't think any of them want to deal with Flacco and that defense. So it's going to be really interesting. In the AFC, I think in the NFC side of things, with all due respect to the Rams might be in that, but I don't see any wild card team really challenging a Niners or an Eagles or a Cowboys, even though I guess Cowboys technically are a wild card team, but of those big 3 or 4 teams. But I think the AFC wide open. And at this weekend, we're going to get a real answer of who is going to more than likely be the where the AFC is going to run through. But yeah, as you said, and I also do want to thank Raider Jim for opening up his house, and the missus as well. This past Friday, myself, Coach Lupian, his son, and his lovely girl as well. We had a great dinner, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you again. A signed Donovan McNabb jersey. I had to go see the doctor on Saturday to get my jaw readjusted because it was on the floor for about 4 hours after I got that fantastic gift. But I want to thank you for that. It was a great time, and it continues to show, kind of how special it is that we get to sit here and talk, NFL football, but to also do it with really, really fantastic people as well. So with that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the NFL Weekly presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. It is time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all next year. Have a great New Year's.
Happy New Year.